Welcome to the Brown Bag Business Chat. This week we're talking about marketing for manufacturers and distributors with our guest host, John Davis. John,
Howdy.
why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and who you do it for?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, first of all. This is a lot of fun. My name is John Davis, like Heather said, based out of awesome Cleveland, Ohio. It is definitely awesome, best place on earth. I'm being interviewed, so you can't disagree with me. I'm a manufacturer's rep, but also a technology entrepreneur. I'm a little bit of sales guy and a little bit of programmer, too. But the company I work for, actually self-employed, family business. That's the manufacturer's rep agency. And then the other company, as you'll see in my little, I guess, byline at the bottom of the screen there, is a company called Three Martini Lunch, which is a software company that specializes in making software for salespeople. That's who I am in a nutshell, right?
Just to give everybody a little bit more background, how did you end up in this place where you're a manufacturer's rep, but then you're also this technology guy? What does that transition look like?
Messy. Yeah, the best way to describe the transition was my parents started this manufacturer's rep business way back in '89, and it is something I really never intended in getting involved with. But went to college, got a computer science degree and a psychology degree that specialized in statistical analysis. And honestly thought I was going to be a programmer until I got offered a job to work for an advertising agency based on my stats background, which, again, told you it was messy. Those two have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So I went to work for the ad agency, one here in Cleveland, a company called Brokaw, a great company. Worked for them for a while as a brand planner. Got bored and basically, like most entrepreneurial stories start, was tired of sitting in a cubicle all day. Went off and raced mountain bikes for a year, which is, again, something totally unrelated, and then came back and kind of joined the family business and realized that I hadn't been coding in a long time, so I had some ideas about some software I wanted to make. So about 4 years into the family business, I started the software company, and that's how we're here.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
John didn't say this because he's a modest guy, but John actually has a much better understanding of the sales and marketing process than most people in his industry that I've met, at least in my opinion. So I think that definitely hearing your story about having that little bit of background working for the ad agency definitely explains why you get how marketing works, how to pull in a sales strategy that aligns with your marketing strategy. So that definitely helps fit that piece of the puzzle for me. I don't think I ever knew that about you.
No,
Uh,
you learn something new every day, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, what's the first step for a manufacturing company or a rep or distributor to really become successful? What's that first piece of groundwork that you have to lay to either create change in your business so that it's going to become more successful in the future, or if you're just starting out, what's the first thing you've got to do to make sure that this is going to be a successful, viable business?
Well, I think there's maybe two things that kind of go hand in hand. And I've seen it with the software company and with the rep business as well, but I also see it with my manufacturers. So the fun part about the software business is I'm responsible for managing a product, which is a lot different than selling a service, which is what I do on the rep side. All that being said, though, I think it's kind of similar. Number one is narrow your focus, I've found. Whether you're developing a product or offering a service or doing marketing, I've found that I do my best and our company performs at its best when we say, all right, we're going to go after target X. Target X is very precisely defined in what we want to do. We want to sell more heating elements to the glass industry. We want to get 50 users for this new app that we're using, blah, 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 whatever. The more definition and structure we can put around whatever the goal is, the better. Saying we're going to grow sales in 2015 is a horrible goal, and lots of people fall on their faces with that because it's hard. I mean, okay, you want to grow sales? Well, how? Yeah, that would be number one. Define focus for sure. Number two, as simple as it sounds, reputation and brand and networking, all that stuff is extremely important. So just take care of your reputation and your brand and what people think of you. And if you're making a product, deliver the best product you can. If you're providing a service, deliver the best service you can. And that stuff does add up. It's like karma. It definitely helps out.
Yeah, that definitely goes back to, something that we talk a lot about on the show and with our clients is defining exactly who your audience is. And I think you did a great job of taking it one step further, not just who is that audience or that ideal client or customer, but what exactly are you going to do with them to impact your business goals? So, creating that strategy and having more than just, I'm going to do Twitter, I'm going to go to this trade show, but having a really defined path for what you're going to do, what the tactics are, what goals you're going to meet along the way to meet that bigger business objective is definitely key. So what about technology? I know you've been in this game not quite as long as some of the older guys who
Yep.
started back when the 3 martini lunch was still something that we do would not be considered alcoholics.
We can bring it back, though. We can do that. Just let me know.
Yeah, well, this is actually my
Awesome. Hashtag 3 martini lunch. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go. So, but I'm sure that you work a lot with the guys that have been in the industry for a long time, who started with really just their Rolodex and a pair of good shoes and going out and shaking hands and meeting people. So how do you take those old school strategies that obviously worked, because a lot of really successful companies were built on those, and take the technology that you've embraced and pair those two things together?
That's an awesome question. And actually, it's kind of a fun story, too. So when I worked at the advertising agency, that was back in the 2006, 7, 8 range, back in there. So things like Twitter and Facebook, I think were certainly around, but they were just becoming, I guess, or starting to become a little bit more mainstream in the marketing world. So people didn't have budgets, or they didn't have strategies devoted to social yet, but we knew it was there, and we knew it was probably going to be something. So reason I'm saying that is with technology in the advertising agency world, we had clients like Vitamin Water, MTD, the people who make tractors and lawnmowers, and it was a very consumer-oriented ad agency. So everything that we did was consumer-oriented marketing. So we did TV spots, a little bit of social stuff, YouTube videos. We did quite a lot of that type of thing. So when I first joined the rep agency, I thought, hey, we can take that same stuff that I learned at the ad agency and apply it towards engineers or plant maintenance people who are buying hydraulic pumps and heating elements and everything else, and we'll see what happens. It didn't work. So for a couple of reasons. One, I think it was a little bit early in the game for that, and 2, you nailed it on the head. Demographics are definitely an important thing, and as it turns out, people who are out in maintenance floor doing whatever, they're not looking at Twitter all day. They're not looking at Facebook. They do use Google, though, and if they're trying to find something online, that's where they go. But it's a lot different. So I run a technology company too, and we make apps that are geared towards salespeople. So if I'm saying all this and saying, hey, technology is kind of tough with an old line business, how do we get it to work? What do we do on the other side, on the technology side? And I think the key, although people could disagree, but I think the key is, people who are engineers and who are maintenance people or whatever, they're still consumers, and they still buy shoes, and they still buy cell phones, and they still buy consumer type goods. But we can't exactly market to them like we would, like Zappos would to somebody who wants to buy shoes. The tools that we make, they have to augment the existing sales process. So handshake meetings, sales calls, all that stuff, they're changing how they're being set up with technology. But listen, if somebody's going to buy something that's part of a multi-million-dollar process, or something that's a sticker price that's $10,000, the handshake meeting is still important. So to go back to your original question, how does technology impact this whole thing? I think it augments it. The sales process, I have a hard time believing will ever be replaced. The handshake meeting, if you will, maybe the 3 martini lunch. I don't know, but yeah, the technology has to surround that. So marketing campaigns, the technology I make, technology other people make, yeah.
That's awesome. That's a really, really great answer, and it leads well into the next thing that I want to talk about, which I work with several manufacturers who really are just kind of overwhelmed and confused by all the technology that's available to them. And sometimes the very first response that a sales manager or business owner has is, this technology gives me a chance to cut out the middleman, go straight to my end customer, make a bigger margin by selling direct through my website or just by bringing leads in online and working them internally. So how can a manufacturer really embrace this technology, embrace what's available, but not end up neglecting or doing away with completely the distributors and reps that have gotten them to where they're at in their business?
Great question. And I definitely have a horse in the race, being a rep who derives most of his income from that. So we're awesome. Please don't get rid of us. Please don't get rid of us. No, but honestly, I think it comes down to knowing your process. The people I know, or I should say the manufacturers I know, who do really well with technology and do really well with reps and do really well with distributors and everybody else in the sales channel, they understand why their customers buy things, how their customers buy things, and it sounds stupid because, of course, you would think, hey, everybody knows how people buy. It's not always the case. The most successful models I've seen set up are, and the technology I think doesn't really matter because the technology is a tool. Technology is not a strategy. Okay, so the companies who know, all right, we know that people look for our product in a certain way. We know how to capture them when they're looking for product in a certain way, and then we know when to engage our reps and our distributors, or we have at least a defined idea of how our sales channel works out in the field, so that when we pass them this lead that we've generated, it's pre-qualified, we've given them enough information to be successful, and then they can close the loop on it with us. Because really, sales and marketing are two separate things. Reps and distributors are not marketers; they're salespeople. So their function in the channel is, I get a lead, and I close the business, or get out there and at least ascertain if the business is closable, and then if it is, go sell something. But yeah, from the tech standpoint on the front end of that. I think being a marketer yourself, you have a whole basket of tools that you can use. And once the company, the manufacturer understands their process, then you can just apply the tools, whether it's Facebook, Google+, SEO, blah, 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 whatever, and make it work. I mean, do you see the same thing? Is it more of a process thing, or do you see it being more of a tool chest thing?
I think it's definitely a process thing. Sometimes the trick is what tools fit to make that end goal more attainable, or how can we speed along the process through technology? Because let's be honest, getting a lead and then calling or emailing or sending the information kind of a more old-fashioned way is definitely a lot less desirable than having connected CRM systems that can automatically pass that information and track pipeline, and as soon as the deal's closed, it automatically goes into the next step for the manufacturer. Those things can definitely help speed along the process, make it more efficient, and make it a better experience for everyone involved, especially the end customer. But no, I completely agree that the tools aren't the strategy. I like that you said that they're really just something that helps the process along.
Well, thanks. And yeah, I mean, just an interesting example, and hopefully I'm not derailing the schedule too much here, but I do know my most successful manufacturers that I guess convert leads, if you want to use the marketing speak for it, at a good rate. They are fully invested into Google Ads. They know that people go and look for their products on Google. So I guess paid search would be the proper term, but they know their competitors' part numbers. They know that people search for those. They search for specific phrases, all the keywords and that type of thing. And I recall, I think the person who's in charge of it, they told me that they get almost a 2-to-1 return on their dollars spent. So I guess every dollar they put into their AdWords, they get almost $2 back in sales, and it works great. I mean, from them, I probably get 4 to 5 leads a day that are qualified off the website. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's not very heard of,
No.
especially in this industry. I think the tech people and some of the other industries have definitely caught on and understand how to do those things well. But unfortunately, manufacturing does tend to lag behind a bit, if we're to speak in stereotypes.
Yep. Well, it kind of is the industry too. When we're selling, valves or something. To quote one of the people I know well, it's not a very sexy product. So, the marketing for it is a whole different ballgame than selling a Rolex watch. It just is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So knowing that the tools are not the strategy, it's still important to know what is out there. What can you put in your tool chest to help, and what can those tools do? So, um, what would you say is out there and available that maybe people don't even know about or wouldn't know how to incorporate it into their business, that could really start to make a difference in how they're marketing and selling their products?
Well, I think from a manufacturer starting from the ground up, and they don't really have an electronic presence. They're not really doing outbound marketing per se. Uh, Probably a good first step from them on a technology standpoint would be making sure that they have some type of CRM, so they know who they're going to be marketing to, and maybe getting somebody to look at that CRM and just break it down into some statistics. Like, hey, did you know that most of our customers are in a 100-mile radius of the manufacturing plant, or most of the companies are 25 million in sales and under. Whatever, right? I think getting that information and being able to act on it is a very, very good first step. And when it
And
comes to
I'm sorry, just before you move on, some people may not be familiar with what a CRM is.
okay.
So it's a contact resource manager. Salesforce, Zoho, there's a lot of names out there. I would just like to throw in my 2 cents that get something that's online.
Yeah.
Please don't install Act on your server and expect that to work very well for your people, because they're going to hate you for that.
Yeah.
And the second one is make sure that your data is portable. So picking a CRM it's a major task, and we have some good resources on our website. There's a million of them out there. There's not one that's the best fit for everybody, but make sure that your information can be exported and easily imported into a new system, because whatever you start with today is probably not going to be the right fit for the rest of your business life. So definitely get something that is easy to import and export. So sorry.
Yeah, no, well said. And actually, we are recovering Salesforce users. We're actually switching CRMs to something we don't know yet. So yeah, data portability is a good thing for sure. And actually, that reminds me of something. Earlier, you had a question about like, hey, what technology in the tool chest and that type of thing. And cloud everything. This whole internet computing deal, and cloud computing really is just somebody else is hosting your data, is so much better than having anything based on site, especially for a small manufacturing company or a rep agency or distributor. If you can find a reputable company that does the hosting for you, the server stuff for you, I don't care if it's email or CRM or whatever, just go that route. It makes life so much easier in so many different ways.
It comes back to the focus too, right? So in the beginning we talked about, to have these successful strategies, you have to really break it down to these tiny focus points of what you're going to do and what you're going to achieve. Well, if you're manufacturing widgets, then being a really good IT company is not that focused. So
no.
Why are you going to try to do it? Why are you going to try to make Mr. R&D guy who knows how to use the computer really well all of a sudden service the network for your entire business? It's crazy.
Yeah,
that's a really
core businesses. Know your core businesses, right? And definitely.
Outsource the rest.
Yeah, exactly right.
So what other tools? And I'll give you the go ahead to plug yourself a little bit here, because you are leading a technology company, and you also happen to work in the manufacturing industry. So I'm sure that something you've created helps merge those two things together. So what other tools that maybe you're very close to can people use, and how would they use it to meet their strategic goals?
Sure. Well, I'll keep the obvious plugs until the end, so at least you can get the I guess the non-sponsored information first. But if I actually had to break down the tools that I use on a daily basis, my number one tool would be, and again, this sounds simple, but Gmail. So email, number one. You're like, whatever, it's not a tool, it's email, it's ubiquitous. No, but it really is. The reason I use Gmail is because it's a database. If you don't know about Gmail, you can keep information in it for basically ever. I haven't deleted an email since 2008. This again sounds silly, but I deal with a lot of manufacturers and other reps who use their own hosted solution or whatever, and they're constantly losing emails. So number one, get an email provider. I don't care who it is that has no limit on how much information you can store. That's just valuable. On a daily basis, I go back and search. Number two is an app called Evernote, which if you haven't heard of Evernote, it is like my second brain. It's an app that runs on PCs, Macs, iPads, iPhones, probably Surface tablets and that type of thing too. But basically, it's a cloud-based. I don't know, Heather. What would you call it? A note storage,
Yeah,
memory storage app.
so
Yeah.
I'm a paper and pencil person. I have my actual
Yeah.
pad that goes everywhere with me, but Evernote is like that in the cloud.
Yeah.
Plus, way better because it's searchable and you can add like everything to it.
You can, and I upload pictures if I'm on a customer site, so I'll take a picture of something, make a quick annotation, upload it. If you upload PDFs, it automatically scans them, and it's now searchable, which is kind of cool. I put my expense receipts in there. I mean, everything, and it's a central repository for all that stuff. So, Evernote is pretty invaluable, absolutely for sure. From I guess a personal perspective of the technology I'm making, you'll notice that, let's see if I can point properly. Ta-da! There we go. Down in the corner there, that's an icon for, I guess, my newest app, my newest technology we're making called Customer Mapper, and it's in the App Store. Right now, it basically shows me which customers are nearby either my location right now or a certain location if I drop a pin on the map. So, case in point, exact reason I made it, a couple months ago I was traveling to a customer down in Kentucky. Meeting fell through, they had to cancel, these things happen. Anybody who's been out in the field knows about this. And I'm sitting there looking at my iPhone on my address book and on my computer. I'm like, there's got to be a way I can just get all the contacts in my address book to show up on a map, so I can just see who's nearby, see if somebody wants to, talk or grab lunch or coffee or whatever. And there was really nothing available. So I created Customer Mapper. It's a very easy app to use. You basically just install it. Looks through your address book, pulls out contacts of a valid address, and displays them on a map. It's a beautiful thing.
I think that technology is so simple, but when we first talked about this, gosh, I guess it's been over a year ago now that we first started talking about this piece of what you were building. I think it's so brilliant because to kind of explain it to people who aren't out there doing calls all the time, who work remotely like me, it might not seem that valuable, but when you've invested the money to go visit somewhere, you've flown there, you're staying in a hotel, you're renting the car, you've put a big expense into this meeting, and then for it to fall through for whatever reason, I mean, people, they have scheduling conflicts, things are going to come up. To be able to pick up and immediately find someone else that you can go meet with and hopefully get some value out of that meeting with them is, I mean, that's huge. That's a really great thing to be able to do. Are there any kind of so once you've dropped your pen and you can see who's around you, what do you do then? Is there a way to easily contact those people and try to set a meeting?
There is. It's convenient that you ask. So you can group people together. So say you're going to Columbus, Ohio. You can drop a pin at Columbus, Ohio, and it'll show whatever amount of contacts you have in Columbus, Ohio in a 5 or 10 mile radius. I could pick out the people I want to meet with, add them to what we call a meeting request in the app. And a meeting request is just a list of people. There's a little template email that says something along the lines of, hey, first name, it autofills their first name. I'm in the area on November 15th, 14th, whatever, and hey, if you have a moment to meet, if you're interested, click this link. There's a little link in the bottom of the email. Thanks so much, and then you can edit it and put other stuff in there if you want to. And it sends it out. So if you have 20 people on the list, it'll send the email out to each one and autofill all their information. And then when the recipient clicks that link in the email, it sends out a notification to your phone, so your phone buzzes, and it says, hey, Heather S. has accepted your meeting request. So then I could call you or talk to the customer and actually send out an Outlook appointment if we were going to set an actual time. But that's kind of the workflow. We take a big group of people, get them down into a group of people hopefully want to meet with, and then if they respond, hey, I got a meeting. So.
Very cool. Have you ever heard of a tool called Calendly?
No, I haven't.
So that's one that I'll send you more information afterwards, but you should definitely check that out. It might be an interesting integration point. So I use Calendly to set up most of my meetings now. I have different types of meetings, so lunches, project reviews, trainings, things that I know take different times, and I set up my availability for those. And it's connected to my Google Calendar. So when I can send out a link that says, here, it's time to schedule your website training. And it'll look at, well, these are the times that Heather is blocked out to be available for website training. And then also check against what I'm actually booked for in my Google Calendar and just show those available spots. So that might be an interesting thing to use that link so that people can actually go ahead and set that exact meeting time right there from the link instead of even having to have one more interaction to try to nail that down. So I'll definitely send you some info on that. And those guys are a startup out of, say, Atlanta. Really good team of developers over there. So.
That's very, very cool. Yeah, send it my way. You never know. They might have an API that I can integrate with and do something awesome. So, yeah. Very
cool. And then, so any other technology that you're working on over there on your end of things?
I do. I guess the original product that we launched with the software company, 3 Martini Lunch, was an app platform called LineCard. And just as it sounds like, it is an app for displaying your line card of product lines if you're a rep or distributor, or of the actual products you manufacture if you're a manufacturer. So if you're a manufacturer and you're in the hydraulic power industry, if you make valves, hoses, and clamps or something, you could have those categories in the app. And then for each one of those categories, you can upload PDFs, promotions, videos, application stories, all that type of thing through a web-based front end. So you go on a website, the app's out there in the App Store, you say, hey, I want to upload this new PDF from this new product, you upload it through our website, all of a sudden it shows up in the app for everybody out there. So the original idea was to make this a very easy thing for manufacturers to get on board with. So it's a monthly fee, and there's no programming, there's no crazy tech stuff the end customer has to use. They just let me know, I get them set up, and they have an app in the App Store 2 weeks later. So.
Very awesome. So basically this would eliminate all of those dusty old binders of collateral that guys like you keep sitting around the office and keeps the manufacturer from having to pay to reprint and distribute material all the time, and make it really easy to go out and in a meeting actually be able to look up and see what's available on your own line card.
Absolutely. And again, one of those things that sounds kind of silly, but it is impossible for any salesperson to have all of the information that they need for every single product line they sell. But every salesperson does have a smartphone, so if they have that information available on their smartphone, hey, it could result in a sale. You never know.
Right. Yeah, and it's definitely a great way for a manufacturer to actually support their reps and their distributors better than they are right now. You know, by taking a piece of technology like this and making it so simple to be able to provide information out to the field. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, and we do too. Well, I mean, of course we do. So I don't know if my word means anything with that, but no, it does. And the intention is it's all about salesperson engagement. So manufacturers, if they think of their, especially if they use multi-channel distribution, a multi-channel sales channel, so they have distributors and reps and everything else, if they just think of how many potential salespeople they have on the street, and if they can engage just, 1 or 2% more of those people on a daily basis, it could do fantastic things for sales. So.
And so do you ever get requests from people who are in your shoes or maybe a manufacturer who have this idea of, like, I want to automate this piece of my business, or I want to do this thing, and it requires technology, maybe a custom app or some sort of web piece or a custom software. Do you ever have people come to you just completely lost with where to get started or how to even scope a process like that? And if so, what would you tell them? What would be your guidance to pass along?
Well, I do get, it's kind of like being the computer kid in the family, and those computer kids in the family out there can definitely relate. If people know that you know how to do this stuff, oh man. And actually, Heather, you probably get that too. Heather, can you make your website, or this thingy won't show up on the thing, whatever. So yeah, people do.
Except people never believe me when I tell them what they need to do.
yeah, exactly, right? It's like, well, what do you mean? Yeah, come on. Yeah. Yeah, I have had people come to me. Actually, I've had some users from Customer Mapper give some pretty interesting feedback, which I'll come back to in a second. Generally, what I tell them, it kind of depends. If they're talking specifically about mobile app development, um, going back to my very original comment of have a clear focus applies 100-fold to mobile app stuff. Mobile apps are expensive for one, and getting into it, especially if you're going to roll one that's custom and you're not using an app as a service like what I make, it's easily into the tens of thousands of dollars range. So going into it, you have to have a very clear strategy of exactly what you want to do and how you want to engage people with it, and most importantly, how it's going to pay for itself. So that whole conversation is something I have way before even talking about what the app's going to look like, or whatever. It's like, hey, are you sure you want to do this, and tell me why you want to do it, and then we kind of go from there. If it's something else like, hey, should I buy a Mac or a PC for my business computer, my answer to them is, what do you do? Tell me about what your workflow is day to day, and then we kind of go from there. So it's very situation based, I guess. Does that sound kind of like your experience too?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, we have our process for web development would probably be similar, where first we evaluate the audience and really get an understanding of who is the ideal audience, and then your brand and what you do and who you do it for, and then what are the actual jobs that your website has to do, which I would imagine would be the same thing with the app.
Mm-hmm.
And we do tie into that kind of, well, what's the revenue and the return on investment that you're going to get, and what does that look like? So of course we have several more steps down the road before we even get into designer development, but I think it's definitely the same type of workflow of forgetting about the flashy, like seeing your own logo in the App Store appeal, and thinking about who is this for, what is it actually going to do, is it going to make life better for someone, or is it really just going to be an investment that ends up only being an expense because there's really nothing coming back off of it.
Yeah, and that is extremely well said. And I would say for the people out there who are watching, like that type of answer is definitely what you want to hear. If you talk to a web developer and they just say, without asking anything, we'll do whatever you want us to do, you might want to reconsider talking to them, because if you're, I don't care if you're selling a service or making a product or whatever, like the app that you make or the website you have or whatever, you should treat it like an internal product development. It is that important. And it requires those resources too. So from an engineering standpoint, I mean, it is an engineering type of thing. So when you go down that route and you do it, make sure you do it right, and treat it like you're making a new widget, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of the same way that a manufacturer would want their customer to think about it. You don't want to just go out there and find the first developer that will do what you want them to do and be that order taker. You want them to actually partner in the process and guide you and give you suggestions on what's right and wrong, and how a process or a way that you build something is really going to have an impact on the end app or piece of software that you're creating. So it's a really good point. And I think it brings us back around to the very beginning of our conversation really well with, you've got to make sure that what you're doing really fits that audience. If you're wanting to create some kind of app that helps streamline your sales process, but you're, I don't know, let's say only going to be able to integrate with one certain CRM, and all of your reps are out there on CRMs that don't have an open API, then you've already shot yourself in the foot. There's really no reason to even pursue that, because it's not going to impact anyone's life positively.
No, definitely not. That is for sure.
Well, John, we are right here at our 30-minute mark. Where can people find you? Where can people find your products, learn more about what it is that you're doing, or reach out and get some information?
Sure. So best way to get in touch with me would be to, I guess, email me first and foremost. jd@linecardappapp.com is a good place to start. I am on Twitter, although probably not as much as I should be. But it's at John P.R. Davis is my Twitter handle. You can find us online at linecardapp.com. That's a good place. And Customer Mapper actually doesn't have a dedicated webpage yet, but it's in the App Store under Customer Mapper, M-A-P-R, one word, Customer Mapper, and you can find it that way. Other than that, my rep agency website, I'm almost embarrassed to say, is pauldavisautomation.com, which I need to actually talk to Heather about getting that thing up to date. But you know what they say about the shoemaker's children. So yeah, so pauldavisautomation.com is the rep agency. And other than that, there you go.
Well, we definitely appreciate your time. I think this was some really great information. I had a really good time chatting with you, as always. Next week, for those of you who will be around, we're going to move our chat up to Tuesday because Wednesday is going to be a little bit crazy for us, getting ready to shut down for Thanksgiving. So we'll be here Tuesday at noon Central. We'll have Miss Tess Whitler back on the show. She was one of our very first guests. She'll be back to talk about how to create a content marketing strategy. So Tess is actually our content coach because, like John said, shoemakers kids, we really have not focused on that as well as we should. So I'm really excited for her to come and share some of the things she's taught us, some of the tactics she used with her own clients, and that's going to be a really great episode. So next Tuesday, not Wednesday, at noon Central, we'll see you here on the Brown Bag Business Chat.